Chapter 694. After the police left, Father Song couldn't hold it in any longer and cursed out loud. Psst. He was obviously very angry. When Gu Xingyin returned home that day, she saw her parents sitting on the sofa. The atmosphere was a little solemn. She changed her shoes and sat beside Mother Song. "Mom, what's wrong?" Mother Song looked at her daughter, who looked so much like her, and saw the undisguised concern on her beautiful face. This was her daughter. Someone actually wanted to harm her. No one could touch her daughter. "It's nothing." She held Gu Xingyin's hand and smiled. "Your father and I just saw the news. It said that it's not very peaceful here recently. We're thinking about you." Gu Xingyin smiled. "I'm at school. There's no safer place than school." Mother Song said, "I just discussed with your father. We'll let your Uncle Duan send you to school every day. Otherwise, I won't be at ease." Uncle Duan was the Song family's chauffeur. It was said that he was from the military when he was young. Gu Xingyin didn't refuse. She knew what her parents were worried about. She also knew from the system that the police had come to their house today. They most likely knew what Song Tian and Su Jun did. They didn't tell Gu Xingyin about this, but they told Song Yi when he came home that night. This son was already an adult. In Father and Mother Song's hearts, he would be the pillar of the Song family in the future. When the two of them grew old, Yu would have to rely on him to take care of her. Song Yi's face turned cold when Mother Song mentioned this. "With Uncle Duan looking after her, I'm very assured." Song Yi's face calmed down. He knew Uncle Duan's ability. He had learned a thing or two from Uncle Duan when he was young. Uncle Duan could easily defeat 10 ordinary adults. His driving skills were also needless to say. Uncle Duan was an amazing person who could drive at the speed of life and death during peak traffic in Shanghai. At night, Gu Xingyin had just finished showering when someone knocked on the door. "Brother?" She was a little surprised. This brother rarely came to her room at night. Song Yi looked at the person in front of him. She was wearing a light pink bathrobe. The collar of the bathrobe covered her body tightly, but it couldn't hide the snow-white skin of her neck. Because she had just taken a bath, her hair was still damp, and it hung softly on both sides of her face. It added a hint of womanly charm to the immature Qin Qin. He had heard the news from his parents. Even though he knew that nothing had happened, he was still eager to see her. Song Yi looked down at her and suddenly said, "Brother's Qin Qin is going to grow up too." "Gu Xingyin?" Song Yi chuckled softly when he saw the confused look on the other party's face due to his abrupt words. "It's nothing. Big brother just wanted to see you." Gu Xingyin was still a little confused, but she still smiled obediently. Her appearance made Song Yi's mood very good. He reached out and rubbed her hair. He said gently, "Rest early." Gu Xingyin nodded. "Brother, good night." Song Yi smiled and nodded. "Good night." He lifted his leg and was about to leave when he suddenly remembered something. "Oh right, I forgot something." Gu Xingyin looked up in confusion. A touch of wet heat was printed on her right cheek. The girl in front of him stared at him with wide eyes. Her gaze was full of shock. Song Yi winked at her. "Good night kiss." Chapter 695. Gu Xingyin, don't lie to me just because I haven't graduated from high school. What kind of good-night kiss would a brother and sister this old be? This isn't normal. Could it be that Song Yi couldn't resist the attraction between the two of them and had feelings for me? No, this isn't right. Gu Xingyin covered her face and took a step back. She looked at Song Yi and said seriously, "Brother, I've already grown up." Song Yi's smile didn't change. "Oh." Gu Xingyin continued, "Good-night kisses are used to coax children. Brother, don't do such things." Song Yi said in surprise, "Really? But usually, only young girls say things like, 'I've grown up.'" Gu Xingyin, the enemy's level was too high. Fortunately, Song Yi didn't harp on this. He said, "Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Go to bed early." Gu Xingyin breathed a sigh of relief. "Brother, good night." Song Yi walked out of the room with a smile. As soon as the door closed, his face darkened. She was avoiding him. He knew that he was too impatient. The good-night kiss just now was definitely unexpected. In fact, he wanted to kiss her directly on the lips. However, Her attitude clearly showed that she was avoiding his intimate actions. She wanted to maintain their relationship at the level of brother and sister. But what I want is not just brother and sister. Song-yi lowered his eyes. Fortunately, the next day, Song-yi looked no different from usual. This made Gu Shengyin breathe a sigh of relief. Perhaps Song-yi-jin's brotherly love had suddenly erupted, and she suddenly wanted to give him a goodnight kiss. Song-yi felt that he might have scared her last night. But when he saw her relieved look because he had returned to a safe distance, he felt depressed. Is being close to your brother so scary to you? But looking at her relaxed look, he couldn't bear to continue provoking her. He could only suppress his anger. A few days later, Papa Song and Mama Song, who had been waiting for news, received confirmation from the police that the recording was not a joke. They were serious about taking action. Even though they already knew that the conversation between the two in the recording didn't seem to be a prank, Papa Song and Mama Song still felt sad and in disbelief. How could the girl they had doted on since she was a child be so dark? Soo Jun and Song Tian were taken away by the police when they were at school. At that time, their classmates were all there, guessing what they had done. In the hearts of these teenagers, being a police officer was still a very serious and sacred profession. Song Tian already had a guilty conscience. When she heard that the police were looking for her, her face turned pale. Her form teacher was a lady in her 30s. When she saw Song Tian's expression, she thought that she was frightened. At this time, she even said to the police, "What's the matter? Song Tian is a student in my class. She's usually a little unruly, but she's still a very nice person." Song Tian did not expect that this usually stern and rigid form teacher would actually speak up for her. She was a little touched. The police interrupted the form teacher. "We can't reveal the details before the details are out. Sorry to disturb you." When Song Tian walked to the school gate, she bumped into Soo Jun, who was also taken away by the police. In an instant, her heart fell to the bottom. It was over. Chapter 696. After all, they were just teenagers. A few experienced interrogators scared them a little, and the two of them spilled the beans, telling the whole story. Father Song and Mother Song were already prepared. They were still calm when they heard this, but Father and Mother were really shocked. They went to see Soo Jun and Song Tian. Song Tian probably knew that she had gotten into big trouble this time. She rushed over when she saw Father Song and Mother Song. She tried to grab Mother Song's hand. Mom, I was just confused for a moment. I really didn't do it on purpose. I didn't want her life. Mom, you have to believe me." Mother Song waved her hand away. "Who's your mother? Don't call me that." She was really cold to Song Tian. "You've already contacted the people. You were confused for a moment? If you hadn't been found out about what you did." Mother Song closed her eyes. She didn't dare to think about the consequences. Song Tian and Soo Jun had already found the people and were just waiting for the right opportunity. Mother Song couldn't forgive the girl in front of her when she thought that if she hadn't been lucky this time, her Yu might have been hit by an accident on the way to school one day. Song Tian was really scared this time. She heard from the police that someone like her was suspected of a criminal offense and would have to go to jail. She was only 16 years old. She was going to take the college entrance examination next year. How could she go to jail? The Song couple didn't move. Only then did Song Tian see the young couple standing at the side. They were her last saviors. Save me. I know I was wrong. I really didn't do it on purpose. It was impossible for Mother and not to feel complicated. Her daughter actually wanted to hire someone to kill someone? This kind of thing was completely out of her imagination. Moreover, she was standing there, but Song Tian looked at the Song family first. This made her feel a little uncomfortable. But after all, she was her own daughter. No matter what, Mother didn't want to see her in such a situation. She looked at the Song couple. "Mr. Song, Madam Song, you watch Tian grow up?" Mama Song stood up and ignored Mama. Instead, she said to the police officer, "Officer, I absolutely cannot forgive this kind of thing. Other people's daughters are treasures, but my daughter is also a treasure that I want to hold in my hands." Her meaning was very clear. There was no turning back for this matter. She would deal with it however she wanted. Song Tian went limp. Mr. and Mrs. Song did not want to see her anymore, so they turned and left without hesitation. In the end, Su Jun and Song Tian were convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 3 years in prison. The Su family had put in a lot of effort to reduce the sentence, but this time, the Song family was determined to be merciless. In the end, they had no choice. 3 years was enough for two 16-year-old teenagers to completely rewrite their lives. To Gu Shengyin, Song Tian had truly become a thing of the past. The explanation given by the school was that she had taken a leave of absence due to illness. The only people who knew were the form teacher and the principal. If this kind of thing was spread out, it would have a bad impact on the school. The school could not have told the truth back then. From the beginning to the end, no one told Gu Shengyin about this. Gu Shengyin was also happy to enjoy the protection of her family. But this brother was giving her a strange feeling. What should she do? Chapter 697. Song Yi was still doting on his precious little sister, but Gu Shengyin felt that the way he looked at her was getting more and more difficult to understand. In any case, she had experienced so many worlds and had a certain understanding of human emotions. Although Song Yi had concealed his feelings well, he could not help but reveal a trace of it. But Gu Shengyin didn't expect that if Song Yi didn't want her to see some traces, she wouldn't have noticed. You must be careful. Mother Song reminded the two of them. The summer vacation before the 3rd year of high school arrived. Gu Shengyin didn't need to work part-time as usual, and she didn't need to attend tuition classes. Instead, she prepared to go on a long trip with Song Yi. This suggestion was made by Song Yi, and Father Song and Mother Song thought it was a good idea. In their eyes, it was a good thing for young children to go out and see the world. In the past, Gu Shengyin also thought it was a good idea, but now, Gu Shengyin, she always felt that her brother was up to no good. What are you thinking about? Song Yi looked at her with a smile. Gu Shengyin came back to her senses and said with a smile, Nothing, nothing. Song Yi said helplessly, You can't stay outside like this. I have to look after you. What if you get lost? Gu Shengyin, she smiled. I'm not a child anymore. Song Yi habitually reached out to ruffle her hair. But my Chin Chin is so cute. I'm afraid that someone will take you away from me. When he said this, he turned his face to Gu Shengyin, and the tenderness in his eyes turned into spring water. Gu Shengyin took a step forward without a trace and shook off his hand. She turned around and looked at him. Brother, let's go quickly. We won't be able to catch the plane. The warm touch in his hand suddenly disappeared. Song Yi retracted his hand and subconsciously rubbed his thumb and middle finger together, as if recalling the feeling just now. He suppressed the disappointment and unwillingness that had just surged up from the bottom of his heart and smiled. You're here. Their seats were undoubtedly connected. Song Yi took out an eye mask and gave it to her. There's still a long time. Sleep for a while. I'll wake you up when we arrive. Gu Shengyin nodded and leaned against the seat with her eyes closed. Perhaps the scent of the person beside her was too reliable and familiar, but she fell asleep immediately. Feeling the weight on his shoulder, Song Yi lowered his head and could see the top of the girl's hair. He moved slightly and adjusted his position slightly so that Gu Shengyin could sleep more comfortably. In the eyes of outsiders, the posture between the two. Sir, would you like anything to drink? The stewardess' gentle voice sounded. Song Yi's first sighs. This is half. Seeing that she had no intention of waking up, he was relieved. He put his index finger to his mouth and gently shushed the stewardess. His eyes were handsome and gentle. When he made such a gesture, the air stewardess was caught off guard and blushed. The air stewardess nodded and said enviously, You're so nice to your lover. Gu Shengyin was half leaning in Song Yi's arms, and his face was blocked. The air stewardess naturally thought that they were a very loving couple, and the two of them were in such an intimate position. Song Yi smiled and didn't deny it. Chin Chin would become his lover sooner or later. Chapter 698. Gu Shengyin had no idea that she had been loved in her dreams. Anyway, when she woke up from her sweet dream, it was already time to get off the plane. The first stop was Yun City. Yun City was a very beautiful city. There were mountains, rivers, and beauties here. Since ancient times, it had been a favorite place for beautiful scenery. When she arrived at this place, it was as if it was a different world from the city she had lived in before. Most of the buildings still retained the style of 100 years ago. They were simple and elegant. On the streets, there were all kinds of enthusiastic and lively figures of ethnic minority girls wearing ethnic costumes and silver jewelry. There was even a girl holding a wreath made of fresh flowers in her hand. She wanted to give it to Song Yi. Song Yi politely thanked her, and then firmly rejected her. Gu Shengyin curiously asked why. Song Yi helplessly pointed to the front for her to see. Then, Gu Shengyin saw that not far in front, a young man gave a wreath to a beautiful girl. The girl accepted it, and then the surrounding people watched and applauded. The two of them kissed. Here, accepting someone else's garland is equivalent to accepting someone else's love, Song Yi explained. Gu Shengyin suddenly understood. She tilted her head and looked at Song Yi beside her. He was tall and well-built, and his face was so handsome that it could be described as exquisite. The customs here were open, and many girls were openly sizing him up. Big brother, you're practically a human-shaped luminous body. She pretended to sigh with emotion. Song Yi looked around and said in a low voice with a smile, "But in my eyes, no girl can compare to my Qin Qin." Gu Shengyin's face was calm, but in her heart, she was frantically thinking, this is flirting, flirting, flirting. How should she reply to appear calmer? In the end, she decided to pretend that she didn't hear it. Okay, Gu Shengyin admitted that she was scared. But when this man fully activated his flirting mode, Gu Shengyin felt that although she was a very moral person, in front of her lover, she couldn't control herself at all. She wanted to talk things out with her brother. But what if he only had brotherly feelings for her? What would Song Yi think of her? A strange girl who fantasized that her own brother liked her? Gu Shengyin covered her face. She was really at a loss. Song Yi was in a good mood as he looked at the girl in front of him with a conflicted expression. She should have gradually become aware of his thoughts. What was she thinking now? How should he explain it to her? Yet he was troubled and didn't know what to say? Very well, this was exactly what Song Yi wanted. That was why she was in such a state. Slowly, she began to accept this matter from the bottom of her heart. He didn't intend to tell Qin Qin that he wasn't her biological brother. Otherwise, he would lose a perfect excuse. Putting aside these small worries, Gu Shengyin admitted that this trip was very satisfying. When she returned home, her skin was tanned and she even lost some weight. Song Yi's mother was very distressed and complained that her son didn't take good care of his sister. Song Yi rubbed his nose and accepted the complaint. It was Gu Shengyin who couldn't stand it and spoke up for him. "Mom, don't blame Big Brother. I'm the one who's tanned on the beach every day. I may look thin, but I've only lost some fat. I'm much more energetic now." Chapter 699. Without the worrisome Song Tian and the Yin family, Gu Shengyin had a very peaceful year. She didn't even have to worry about the college entrance exams with her results. Gu Shengyin was completely calm about the college entrance exams that made countless students nervous and excited. She had participated in the college entrance exams many times. The first time she took it, she felt fresh. After that, she answered the questions as usual and walked out of the exam hall. When the last class ended, Gu Shengyin walked out of the exam hall. She immediately saw Father Song, Mother Song, and Song Yi standing in the crowd. The weather in June was very hot. The sun shone brightly on everything. Gu Shengyin could clearly see that the three of them were sweating from the heat. Even Mother Song's makeup was a little smudged. When had the three of them ever been in such a sorry state? Gu Shengyin's heart ached. She quickly walked over to them. "You could have just waited for me at home. Otherwise, you could have just waited in the car. Why are you all standing there in the sun?" Mother Song smiled and held her hand. Other children see their family members waiting for them the moment they come out. How can my Yu not have anyone waiting for her? Gu Shengyin's eyes welled up with tears, but she remained stubborn. "I'm not that delicate." Song Yi stood at the side and said, "Let's go back first. Sister Yun has already prepared a feast. We have to celebrate for Qin Qin." Gu Shengyin deliberately said, "We have to celebrate now." If I mess up, won't all our efforts be in vain? Father Song opened the car door and let Mother Song in. Then, he sat in the car himself. So what if you mess up? You're my daughter. How can you be tied down by a diploma? It was good to add flowers to brocade. If Gu Xingyin really didn't do well, it wouldn't be a big deal to their family. Gu Xingyin had nothing to do. She saw a magazine beside her seat. Before Song Yi could stop her, she flipped it open. On the first page, there was a big title, Young Master Song and Mysterious Woman Are on a Date. Good news seems to be coming. The photo in the magazine was not very clear, but one could still make out that Song Yi was chatting happily with a beautiful woman. They looked very intimate. Her heart sank. Although she knew that this was most likely a misunderstanding, she was still very confident in her lover's heart. However, she still felt unhappy when she saw this news. She smiled coldly and turned to look at her brother. Are you going to find me a sister-in-law? Song Yi carefully looked at her expression and suddenly changed his mind about explaining. Instead, he smiled and said, she is a very talented woman. She actually praised him. What made Gu Xingyin the most depressed was that Mother Song, the godly assistant, also said, Yi thinks it's not bad. When you have time, you can bring it home and show it to your mother. Song Yi smiled and casually replied to his mother, avoiding the question. He could use this to provoke little Vinegar Bun, but if he really wanted to bring her home, it wouldn't be easy to solve the problem. After returning home, Gu Xingyin was not in a good mood until dinner. Father Song and Mother Song thought that she was tired from the exams, so they considerately asked her to go back to her room and rest early after dinner. Gu Xingyin washed up early and sat on the bed, reading an English novel. Based on her understanding of a certain man, it was about time for him to come. Chapter 700. It turned out that she knew her lover very well. Before she turned to the third page, the door of her room was opened. Chin chin. Gu Xingyin didn't get up. She looked at the man who came in with a faint smile. Brother, what are you doing here? Song Yi felt that her indifferent attitude was completely different from usual, but he was very happy in his heart. I saw that you didn't eat much at night, so I came to see if you were uncomfortable. Song Yi sat down on the chair beside her bed. Gu Xingyin closed the book with a bang. Brother, don't you have a confidant? How can you have time to care about me so late? It seemed that she was really annoyed. Song Yi helplessly spread out his hands to clarify. That person is a designer I know. She admires my mother very much. She wants to visit my mother through me. Gu Xingyin continued to be calm. Oh, what does that have to do with me? Song Yi looked at her gently with an expression of, I will tolerate you even if you are unreasonable, and said, I'm afraid that my lovely sister will be jealous and angry. Gu Xingyin was still stubborn. What a joke, I won't be angry. Gu Xingyin's unfinished words were all swallowed by the sudden warmth on her lips. Song Yi finally did what he had always wanted to do. He clasped Gu Xingyin's waist with one hand, not giving her any possibility of retreat. Until he was finally satisfied, Gu Xingyin could breathe. She pushed him away with all her strength and looked at him in disbelief. You're crazy. Song Yi smiled and shook his head. I'm not crazy. I'm very sober. I want to kiss you, Chin Chin. He had wanted to do this for a long time, but he had been holding back. He had planned to wait until she was 18 years old, but tonight the night was too charming, or Gu Xingyin was too charming. He found that he couldn't help it at all. Gu Xingyin was scared to death by this bold man. We are brother and sister. Song Yi's question was completely ignored. Instead, he asked her, when you were kissed by me, your first reaction wasn't disgust or discomfort, but the fact that we're siblings. Does this mean that it's not that you don't have feelings for me, but because of our relationship as siblings, you don't dare to take a step out of the lightning pool? Gu Xingyin had to admit that this man had analyzed her psychology very thoroughly. But so what if his analysis was thorough? They were brother and sister, and this was a gap that could never be crossed. She said calmly, Brother, where's your rationality? Song Yi suddenly laughed. Chin Chin, you're avoiding my question. He suddenly leaned close to Gu Xingyin, his tall figure completely enveloping her petite body sitting on the bed. You're not completely unmoved by me, right? Gu Xingyin lowered her eyes. She couldn't answer this question. Song Yi already knew the answer. He smiled. It wasn't his usual smile that made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. It was a genuine smile that came from the bottom of his heart. Even the tips of his brows and the corners of his eyes were filled with smiles. He was very happy. He couldn't help hugging Gu Shengyin. "I'm so happy, Qin Qin." Gu Shengyin was dazzled by this man's pure and happy smile. She could see that this man was very happy because of her acquiescence. But she had to tell him the cruelty of reality. "But no." Song Yi raised his hand to cover her mouth. "Qin Qin, you worry too much. We're not siblings." "What?" Gu Shengyin looked up in shock. Chapter 701. Gu Shengyin listened to Song Yi's short story in a daze. Father Song and Mother Song were very close. Back then, Mother Song's body was very weak, and the doctor found that it was very difficult for her to get pregnant. The two of them were disappointed, but they didn't dwell on the matter. They went to the orphanage and adopted Song Yi, who was abandoned at birth for unknown reasons. Who knew that in the 3rd year after Song Yi came to the Song family, the family welcomed a new life. Father Song and Mother Song didn't neglect this son who wasn't their biological son just because of Song Tian's arrival. They didn't hide the truth from Song Yi. When he was 15 years old, they told him the truth. They felt that their son had the right to know his background. Gu Shengyin felt a little dazed. She asked the system, "I don't know about this part of the plot." The system replied, "The system doesn't know either. The original plot didn't have this part." In other words, this was a hidden part of the plot. After Song Yi finished speaking, he saw that Qin Qin was still in a daze. She was sitting on the bed in a daze, and he felt that she was very cute. He couldn't help but lean over and kiss her forehead. He smiled and said, "When you're 18 years old, I'll talk to Dad and Mom about this." Gu Shengyin came back to her senses. She was still a little dazed. Dad and Mom won't object? Seeing that she was obediently following his train of thought, Song Yi smiled and rubbed her hair. "Don't worry about this. I'll take care of Dad and Mom." He stood up. "It's getting late. You should rest early." The door was quietly closed. Gu Shengyin was surprised and happy. She thought that in this life, they were destined to have no future. She didn't expect things to turn around so suddenly. "System." She was a little happy. The system's white light flashed. "Congratulations, host." Gu Shengyin smiled for a while. She felt that she was a little silly. She hugged the pillow and fell asleep. After returning home from the trip, it was almost time for school to start. Gu Shengyin's college entrance exam results were very good. She could go to any university in the country. However, the Song family loved their daughter. The city's university was already quite famous in the country. In addition, Gu Shengyin didn't need to go to those universities in the capital to make herself look good, so she chose the city's university. On the first day of school, Song Yi drove her to school. With a capable brother like Song Yi around, all Gu Shengyin had to do was move a stool over and eat snacks while Song Yi tirelessly helped her pack her luggage. He even made the bed for her. In fact, Gu Shengyin knew all these, but she just enjoyed the feeling of being pampered. The conditions of the 4-person apartment-type dormitory were not bad. While Song Yi was tidying up, his other roommates also arrived one after another. Other than Gu Shengyin, none of the other 3 were locals. Although the dormitory was air-conditioned, they were still sweating from tidying up on such a hot day. At this moment, everyone was looking enviously at Gu Shengyin, who was sitting there leisurely, drawing aggro. At the same time, they glanced at Song Yi, who was working with a red face. "This man is really handsome. You're all Qin Qin's roommates. Our Qin Qin is spoiled at home. She's still young, so please take care of her in the future." Song Yi smiled gently at Gu Shengyin's 3 roommates. He didn't restrain his hormones at all. He was right. And Qin Yu hadn't even gone to kindergarten. She was in the 1st grade at a very young age. She was generally 1 or 2 years younger than her peers. The 3 of them blushed and nodded repeatedly. They all promised to take good care of Gu Shengyin in the future. Gu Shengyin was speechless as she watched Song Yi use his beauty to successfully bribe her future roommates. Chapter 702. After Song Yi treated everyone in the dormitory to a meal, the three of them had become his fangirls. They almost patted their chests and assured him that as long as they were there, Gu Shengyin would never be bullied at school. Gu Shengyin felt funny. It was as if she had been bullied before. Song Yi left Gu Shengyin's dormitory reluctantly. At this time, he tasted the bitter fruit of his own actions. He didn't have time and space to say goodbye to Qin alone. The advantage of going to university in the city was that Gu Shengyin could go home when she was free. If Song Yi was like her, he could also drive to her school to visit. Gu Shengyin's entire dormitory knew that Gu Shengyin had a brother who spoiled his sister. He doted on his sister and was generous. Most importantly, he had a beautiful face that could make one eat more bowl of rice after seeing it. What surprised Gu Shengyin was that although the girls in the dormitory kept talking about how handsome her brother was, like fangirls, none of them had ever asked her for her phone number. She asked out of curiosity one day. Her roommate Tutu, who was lazily painting her nails at the noodle shop, said, "What's so strange about that? We like your brother just because he's handsome. To us, he's like the bright moon in the sky. We can see him but can't touch him. It's good to be an idol for this kind of person. In real life, he's a person from a completely different world." They were all people who understood in their hearts. After getting along for several months, they knew that Gu Shengyin's roommates' clothes and necessities could easily cost them a month's living expenses. They probably also knew how different a family like the Song family was from an ordinary family. How could such a man take a fancy to a few young students like them? When Gu Shengyin went home next time and told Song Yi this, Song Yi just smiled and reached out his hand to rub the top of her head. Qin's roommates were not bad. Song Yi's actions were really fast. At the end of the first year of university, Gu Shengyin had just turned 18, and he took the initiative to confess to Papa and Mama Song. He even took the initiative to pick a time when Gu Shengyin was out with a few friends. The son fell in love with the daughter. Although this son was not their biological son, Papa Song and Mama Song were still a little confused. Although they did have such thoughts when their daughter was just born, those thoughts had already faded away in the later years of their lives. However, Song Yi's determination moved them. In this lifetime, other than Qin, I will not like any other girl. So, by the time Gu Shengyin returned home from her vacation, she discovered that everything had been settled. After accepting the fact that their son liked their younger daughter, Mr. and Mrs. Song suddenly felt that it wasn't too bad. They knew how Song Yi treated Gu Shengyin. To be honest, they probably wouldn't be able to find another man in this world who would treat Qin so well. The 4 years of university were relaxing and happy for Gu Shengyin. At the graduation ceremony of the 4th year, no one noticed that there was an extra ring on Gu Shengyin's hand. Song Yi felt that he couldn't wait at all. He finally waited until Qin graduated from university. This little white rabbit was already very fat. He couldn't wait to eat her up. Only when she completely belonged to him, his heart would really calm down. He reached out his hand to touch his wildly beating heart. Chapter 703. Song Tian stepped out of that place. The sun was shining brightly outside. She felt that her heart, which had almost gone numb from the silence, was finally recovering a little. She couldn't help but look back at the mottled white wall. There were many people here. Every day, there would be people coming in and going out. Tian? An excited voice sounded. On the other side of the wall, Mr. and Mrs. N, as well as her unfamiliar sister, and Qin, were all standing there looking at her. Mrs. N stood in the middle. She seemed to have aged a lot in the past 3 years. Song Tian thought in a daze. She didn't even have white hair before. His feet had already started walking towards that direction. Dad, Mom, Sister. She called out softly as tears fell down her cheeks. The feeling of freedom and family was so wonderful. Mom made a lot of good dishes. My Tian, you've lost so much weight. Mrs. N felt sorry for Song Tian. She had lost a lot of weight. She was wearing a simple plaid shirt and light-colored jeans. She was thin and small. Under her short hair was an unhealthy pale complexion. This was the result of not being exposed to the sun for many years. Song Tian smiled slightly. Mom, fine. I'm fine now. She was really fine. In the past 3 years, what she wanted the most was to come out. She would be able to come out one day. It was this thought that made her endure for 3 years. Otherwise, she was afraid that she wouldn't even last a year. Being able to stand outside freely and look at the unfamiliar yet familiar streets was enough to move her to tears. She didn't talk about what she had experienced in the past 3 years. If she did, it would only make her family feel sad and worried. It was better to bury it in the deepest part of her heart and never think about it again. After 3 years, she couldn't think about high school anymore. In the end, Song Tian went to a professional school. After 3 years, she graduated and worked as a customer service representative in an e-commerce company. Her life was very ordinary. She earned 2,000 to 3,000 yuan a month. When she saw something she liked, she would check the price first. Most of the time, she could only look at it. She began to go to the mall and pay attention to the discounts. She bought the cheap products that she didn't like at all in the past. She was relatively free today. A few colleagues beside her were chatting. "Hey, I saw the news. The young master of the Song Corporation got married." A girl exclaimed. Song Tian's attention was drawn over. In this city, there was only one person who could be called the young master of the Song family. On the computer screen was a picture of a newlywed couple wearing rings. This photo was obviously released by the officials, and it was very beautiful. Song Yi's head was lowered in concentration, and the girl in front of him was smiling sweetly. Pa! The cup in Song Tian's hand fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. The Songtun, what's wrong? Her colleague turned around and frowned at her. Song Tian forced a smile. My hand slipped. I'm sorry. I'll clean it up immediately. Song Yi and Song Qinyu? How could this be? Weren't they siblings? Song Tian's heart was in a mess. She hurriedly packed up and started to search for information related to the Song family. All these years, she had always carefully avoided anything related to the Song family. The 2 words Song family had become a forbidden zone that she did not dare to touch. Soon, she got the answer she wanted. 2 years ago, the Song family had announced that their eldest son, Song Yi, was not their biological son. Song Tian looked at the news in a daze. What did this have to do with her? No matter what the relationship between the 2 of them was, it had nothing to do with her. She took a last look at the latest news. In the picture, the newlyweds were snuggling together and smiling sweetly. Even through the screen, she seemed to be able to feel the love flowing between the 2 of them. She crossed out the image on the top right corner. Song Tian changed her cup and poured herself a new cup of water. Those were things in another world. Chapter 704. Gu Shengyin looked at the place where she was. This was a wooden house. She sat on a bed made of a large piece of blue stone. There were many layers of white blankets made of unknown animal fur on top of it. It was soft and comfortable. Looking at the whole room, it was obvious that this place had been carefully arranged and cleaned. The room was spotless, and all kinds of utensils were neatly arranged. But no matter how carefully it was tidied up, it still could not erase the fact that the things here were very simple, and could even be called rough. This was a world of orcs that had not been fully developed. Orcs were different from any form of life form that Gu Shengyin had seen before. They could freely switch between human and beast. In daily life, they had the intelligence of a human. When they changed into beast form in battle, they could explode with more powerful fighting power than real beasts. In this world, there was no unified kingdom. Each tribe was self-reliant, and friction and annexation were common things. Orcs were divided into 2 types, male and female. Gu Shengyin automatically thought of these 2 types of orcs as men and women on Earth. Male orcs were responsible for hunting, fighting, and physical work. Female orcs were responsible for some light work. Of course, their most important ability was to give birth. If there was a difference between female orcs and women, it would probably be their preciousness. The name of this continent was very simple and crude. Because it was full of orcs, it was called the Orc continent. The ratio of male and female orcs in the Orc continent was very different. Usually, in a tribe, there might be thousands of male orcs, but there might not be more than 100 female orcs. With this ratio, every female orc was the most precious treasure in the tribe. Not to mention, they could give birth to little orcs. Newborn little orcs were the foundation to ensure the continued strength of the tribe. Because of the scarcity of female orcs, there was usually an unwritten rule in the tribe. That was, a female orc could mate with several male orcs at the same time. Gu Xingyi's body was a female orc. Moreover, her identity was very unusual. She was not only a female orc, but also the most respected high priestess in the tribe. Primitive tribes were very dependent on nature. They believed in nature and the beast god. The high priest was the messenger through which they communicated with the beast deity. However, a high priest was extremely hard to come by. She had to possess shaman power, be able to predict good and bad luck, and even know about the changes in the weather. She had to be knowledgeable. Some small tribes didn't even have a high priest. Gu Xingyi's current body, Wu Luo, was the high priest of the Owl tribe, a powerful tribe in the Beastmen continent. The Owl tribe was one of the most powerful and rich tribes on this plane. The only tribe that could match the Owl tribe was the Force tribe, which was separated by a wide river. In this world, Gu Xingyi's mission target was a fox girl from the Li clan. The fox girl Vicar was a very beautiful girl. She had the innate charm of the Fox clan. She was very popular in the Li clan. The patriarch and the #1 warrior of the Li clan were her guests. Vicar had always wanted to be the high priestess of the Li clan, but the high priestess of the Li clan said that she didn't have any sorcery power, so she couldn't become the high priestess. The high priestess was related to the rise and fall of a tribe. Even if the patriarch of the Li clan liked Vicar a lot, he couldn't agree to her request. Vicar was proud and arrogant. She already had a grudge against Wu Luo. During the last Beast Clan meeting, an incident made her hate Wu Luo. Chapter 705. The strong tribes were qualified to host the alliance. This time, it was the Li tribe's turn to be the host. Everyone's seat was designated for the Beast Clan alliance. The most honorable seats in the front row were for the high priest and clan leader with the highest status in each tribe. Vicar had always gotten whatever he wanted in the Li tribe. That time, Vicar did something that made Vicar sit beside him. At that time, the other tribes did not say anything. When the high priest of the Owl tribe, Wu Luo, who had just arrived, saw Vicar sitting there, her face darkened and she turned to leave. Although she did not say anything, the way she looked at Vicar was full of arrogance and disdain. What Vicar could not stand was that after Wu Luo left, the people of the Owl tribe also left. Then, tribes that were not on good terms with the Owl tribe and tribes that were not used to the way the Li tribe did things left one after another. The Li tribe's alliance became a joke in the eyes of the other tribes. Vicar was also blamed by the people in the tribe for this matter for a long time. Although she was gradually forgiven by the tribe, she bore a grudge against the main culprit, Wu Luo. Even the Owl tribe became a thorn in her side. She was beautiful and knew how to use her advantages. She easily won the hearts of many strong male orcs in the tribe. With their support, the voices of dissent were silenced by cruelty. Vicar became the first orc without wizard power to become the high priest of a tribe. After becoming the high priest of the Li tribe, the first thing Vicar did was to settle the score with the Owl tribe. For this, she even used her status as the high priest of the Li tribe to tempt the leaders of the nearby tribes to cooperate with the Li tribe. The two tribes were the strongest tribes in the vicinity and their abilities were on par. However, the Li tribe was already prepared. In addition, they had many allies. The result of the battle was tragic. At the critical moment, Wu Luo gathered all the wizard power in his body and prayed to the beast god, asking for the beast god's blessing to give the warriors of the Owl tribe great power. It was also because of this blessing that the few remaining warriors of the Owl tribe exploded with great battle power. They protected the remaining females and little orcs of the beast tribe and escaped. As for Wu Luo, he had overdrawn his energy and the Grand Priestess's weak body. Hence, he had not been able to hold on during the escape. Gu Xingyi retracted her thoughts and looked down at her fingers. It was a pair of slender and fair fingers that did not match the entire orc world. The orcs in this world were generally strong and rough. Even the female orcs, who were known as weak, would definitely be strong enough to carry a gunny sack if they were in another world. However, Wuluo was different. Gu Xingyin sensed her body. She was even weaker than when she was Song Qinyu in the previous world. However, at the same time, she felt a trace of power from this body that was not weak. This energy was wizard power. Gu Xingyin's understanding of true qi and magic power was similar in nature. Wizard power came from faith, from praying to the beast god, and from being bestowed by the heavens. This was the saying of the beastmen continent. However, Gu Xingyin knew that this wizard power was actually similar to true qi in the world of swordsmen. Those who were born with wizard power were actually equivalent to having sword heart. There was no such thing as a beast god. Chapter 706. The so-called people who possessed wizard power were born with this physique. However, the orcs did not have a systematic cultivation method. Hence, most of the high priests would find it difficult to improve in their lifetime. It was rumored that praying could make wizard power stronger. It was actually a method similar to meditation. The orcs had stumbled upon a method by accident. According to this level of development, perhaps the entire beastmen continent would slowly develop for thousands of years. Eventually, there would be an amazing beastman who would invent a set of cultivation methods suitable for the high priests to practice and become stronger. At that time, a new situation would appear on the beastmen continent. System: randomly choose the ability. Gu Xingyin prayed silently. It would be best if she could draw the ability she wanted. The world of swordsmanship. Gu Xingyin was delighted. Thank goodness. She had just checked her body and realized that the wizard power in her body was very similar to vital energy. She had an idea in her heart. If she cultivated according to the method of circulating vital energy, could she succeed? The result was a pleasant surprise. There was no problem at all. This also meant that she might be able to bring a huge gift to the owl tribe and even to this continent. For this reason, she asked the system, if I invent this cultivation method, will I be detected and rejected by the laws? The system replied, no. Wu Luo was a wizard. Wu Luo was originally a brilliant person. Moreover, the improvement of the world is a good thing for the world order. Gu Xingyi nodded. She had already found a way to make the entire owl tribe strong and even to connect to the orc continent. As for the Li tribe and vicar, in the face of absolute power, what else could they do? There was a soft knock on the door. Gu Xingyin's face was cold and arrogant. Come in. A small female orc came in with a wooden tray in her hands. She looked at Gu Xingyin with admiration and said respectfully, High Priest, your lunch. In the eyes of the owl tribe, Wu Luo was high and inviolable. Her usual personality was also like that. She always had a calm and indifferent look, as if nothing could leave a trace in her eyes. However, this appearance, in front of the owl clan, was also proof of the mysterious and powerful. Reality proved that no matter what world one was in, brainless fans existed. Gu Xingyin nodded at the female beast, indicating that she understood. After the female beast left, Gu Xingyin realized that she was a little hungry. She looked at the food on the plate. It was roasted meat. The meat was sliced very thinly and roasted until it was golden in color. It smelled very tempting. She picked up a piece and took a bite. It tasted good, soft and chewy, but there was no salt. Not only was there no salt, there wasn't even any seasoning. Gu Xingyin endured the nausea and ate 2 slices before he could not eat anymore. She felt that, before imparting the cultivation technique, she had to first teach the Shao clan members that they needed to put something in their food. After lunch, Gu Xingyin pushed open the door and walked out. An extremely primitive scene appeared in front of her. As the high priest, Wu Luo's house was at the center of the entire tribe. This was also a form of protection for the high priest. No matter what happened, she would not be affected. All kinds of wooden houses of various sizes came into view. They looked simple and crude, but they had a pure sense of beauty to them. Not far in front of them, a few female beasts were weaving something, and a group of little beastmen were playing the most primitive game of tag. Chapter 707. Looking at the little beastmen, Gu Xingyin's eyes lit up. So cute. These little beastmen were still very young and could not fully transform into human form. Hence, Gu Xingyin watched as a group of cute little creatures with furry ears and fluffy tails ran in front of her. Gu Xingyin held it in for a while, but in the end, she could not help but walk towards them. The group of female beastmen noticed her immediately and quickly lowered their heads to salute her. They were very surprised and a little uneasy. Usually, the high priestess never went out. Was something going to happen? Gu Xingyin looked at them and felt a little helpless. She finally knew why Wuluo's body was so weak. She was a complete homebody who never went out to exercise or enjoy the sun. It would be strange if her body was healthy. She maintained her noble and cold attitude and said calmly, "Don't worry, I'm just out for a walk." The female beastmen finally relaxed and watched the high priestess walk towards the little beastmen. Seeing Gu Xingyin walk over, the little beastmen subconsciously stopped playing. They were still very young. Although they knew that the high priestess was a very powerful person, they did not really worship her from the bottom of their hearts. Hence, they all looked at Gu Xingyin with their round eyes in amazement. They were simply too cute. Gu Xingyin sighed for the second time. The little beastmen were the most precious little fellows in the tribe. They wore little clothes that were carefully sewn by the female beastmen using the softest fur. They were so small that they were wrapped in thick fur. It was simply irresistible. Gu Xingyin squatted down in front of them. Probably because her intentions were too obvious, the little beastmen looked at her curiously. One of them could not help but ask, "High Priestess, do you want to play with us?" The female beastmen who had been paying attention to them were shocked by this bold question. Who did not know that the high priestess did not like noise? They hoped that she would not be angry. There was even a female beast who stood up and wanted to come over to take the little orc away so as not to disturb the high priest's peace. Unexpectedly, Gu Xingyin nodded. "That's right. Are you willing to let me play with you?" The female beast stopped in her tracks. She looked at Gu Xingyin blankly, then her heart was filled with ecstasy. The high priestess was actually willing to lower herself to play with the little beastmen? Her child was among them. What a great honor it was! She turned around and returned to her original spot to share the exciting news with the other female beasts. The little beastman who spoke earlier looked at Gu Xingyin with his big eyes and said softly, "High priestess, you are so beautiful. We are willing to play with you." Gu Xingyin could not help but smile. She simply sat up on the ground and beckoned the little beastmen to come over. She gently pointed her finger at the ground, and a magical scene appeared. The sand on the ground seemed to have its own consciousness. It automatically formed together as if there was a pair of skillful hands moving slowly. Soon, a simple model of a house appeared in front of the little beastmen. This little house was similar to the houses that the beastmen built themselves, but it was more exquisite. Gu Xingyin did not dare to go too far. If she really built a beautiful castle, the world law was not stupid. It would definitely make her leave immediately. Wow! Gu Xingyin received a lot of starry eyes. Chapter 708. High Priestess, you're amazing. The little leopard orc with furry ears looked at Gu Xingyin with admiration. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but reach out and touch his furry ears. Junior Leopard's face turned red. His mother told him that only his future female orc could touch his ears. But he blinked and looked at the high priestess. If it's the high priestess, it's fine. Junior Leopard's face turned even redder at the thought. While the little orcs were having fun, the female orcs started to worry. Of course, they knew how the high priestess did it. That was the legendary wizard power. The high priestess was using such a precious thing to play with the little orcs. They were happy that the high priestess liked the little orcs, but they were also worried that it was too wasteful. Perhaps because the little orcs were too cute, Gu Xingyin taught them how to build their favorite things out of sand. Before they knew it, an entire afternoon had passed. In the evening, the male orcs who had gone out to hunt came back. Eoris immediately saw the high priestess playing with the little orcs. The dim sunlight shone on her face, giving her usual cold expression a gentle glow. She even had a smile on her face as she taught the little beastmen how to build a small house. The male orcs saw the high priestess too. They quickly put down the prey in their hands and bowed to Gu Shengyin. Gu Shengyin snapped out of her daze and stood up. She instantly turned back into the high priestess who didn't enter on her birthday. The little orcs didn't know how the gentle and beautiful high priestess suddenly became like this. They all looked at her nervously. Gu Shengyin said a few words to the male orcs and asked them to leave. She turned around and saw the little orcs looking at her blankly. Were they scared by her? She sighed and winked at them, revealing a relaxed smile. The little orcs beamed with joy again. The high priestess was still the same gentle lord. Orvis couldn't help but turn around to look at Gu Shengyin. He happened to see Gu Shengyin winking and smiling at the little orc. The image of the high priest who wasn't his usual self was deeply imprinted in his mind. The high priestess was really beautiful. It turned out that she liked little beastmen so much. Orvis suddenly thought of something and blushed. During dinner, Gu Shengyin was once again surprised by the owl tribe's orcs. The high priestess, who had always waited for someone to send food to her room, actually came out in person. The owl clan's dinner was eaten together by the entire tribe. At night, the entire tribe lit up with bonfires. The orcs, who had been busy all day, sat on the grass and enjoyed the fruits of their labor. Some prey was being roasted on the fire, emitting a tempting fragrance. A large copper pot was burning red. There were pieces of beast meat in it and some fragrant wild vegetables. Seeing Gu Shengyin's arrival, the orcs quickly cleared a space in the middle and carefully spread a thick layer of animal skin on the grass. The high priestess's body was weak. This was a fact that the entire tribe knew. Gu Shengyin was about to announce a piece of news at this time. Chapter 709. She stood up. Unlike most of the orcs in the tribe who wore animal skins, the high priestess wore plain white clothes made of linen. Such clothes were very soft and took a lot of energy. In the whole tribe, only the high priestess had such treatment. At this moment, she was standing in the night wind. Her empty white robe was blown up by the wind. Her slender body seemed like the high priestess would be blown away if the wind was a little stronger. Orvis sat not far from her. He had an impulse to immediately go to her side and block the wind for her. At this time, Gu Shengyin spoke. Last night, I received a revelation from the beast god. Her voice was not loud, but it was clearly transmitted to the ears of every orc in the owl tribe, including the orcs who were patrolling outside and not here. Such an ability made the owl tribe respect the high priestess even more. The meaning in Gu Shengyin's words made them all respectful. Hearing the words, beast god, all the orcs stood up spontaneously and bowed their heads in the direction of Gu Shengyin. In their minds, the high priestess was the spokesperson of the beast god in the orc continent. What the beast god looked like, the orcs had never seen it. In contrast, the high priestess who could bring wealth and prosperity to the owl tribe was undoubtedly more revered by them. Then, Gu Shengyin's next words made everyone ecstatic. My owl tribe will become the most powerful tribe in the orc continent. The people of the owl tribe will become the most powerful orcs in the orc continent. Long live the beast god. Everyone was shocked by this news. They would not suspect that Gu Shengyin was lying. In this world, no orc dared to joke about the beast god. The beast god told me how to become a high priestess and continue to practice. If Gu Shengyin had just drawn a big pie for the owl tribe, then her words now were telling them how to eat this pie. All the beastmen looked at Gu Shengyin in surprise. A priest was such a precious resource. In such a large tribe like the owl tribe, there were only a few orcs who had the potential to become a priest, and only High Priest Wu Luo could be the high priest of a tribe. Priests had to possess witchcraft, which was bestowed by the innate beast god. Now, the high priest said that other orcs also had hope of becoming priests. A powerful high priest, to a tribe, was no doubt the existence of a sea-stabilizing needle. If the owl tribe could have many priests, thinking of this possibility, all the orcs were so excited that their eyes turned red. From tomorrow onwards, bring 10 little beastmen to me every day. I will observe them one by one and see which one can become a priest. After Gu Shengyin finished speaking, she returned to her original spot and sat down. He had said enough for today. Let them digest it first. As expected, the entire owl tribe was immersed in an excited atmosphere. That night, even many adult orcs did not sleep. The next day, Gu Xingyin had just woken up when she noticed a group of orcs standing neatly outside. "What time is it now?" Gu Xingyin was stunned. The system replied, "If it's converted to a 24-hour system, it's only 6 o'clock in the morning." 6 o'clock in the morning? Gu Xingyin pushed the door open. As expected, there were water droplets on the heads of the orcs outside. It was obviously formed by the morning fog. The little orcs were fine. They were all held in the arms of their respective parents and wrapped tightly in animal skin. Some of them were even sleeping soundly. Chapter 7:10. Seeing Gu Xingyin open the door, the orcs hurriedly woke up the little orcs in their arms. Then they bowed to Gu Xingyin. "Come in." The orcs entered the door cautiously. The little orcs were braver. A few of them had played games with Gu Xingyin the other day. Now that they saw her, they ran over fearlessly. The little leopard even hugged Gu Xingyin's thigh. Gu Xingyin pushed him away helplessly. She said, "All right, we're not here to play games today. Stand properly." After all, she still had a lot of authority. The little orcs all stood properly. Starting from the first one, Gu Xingyin walked to his side. She reached out her index finger and tapped the space between his eyebrows. A faint white light flickered on her finger. This made the orcs feel surprised and respectful. Actually, she could have hidden the light completely. She purposely revealed it to make the orcs more convinced. Since they believed in the beast god, she would borrow the name of the god that didn't exist. The little orc only felt a slight chill between his eyebrows. It wasn't uncomfortable. Then, a warm feeling spread from between his eyebrows and swept through his entire body. It was as if his entire body was soaked in hot water. It was very comfortable. When Gu Xingyin's hand left, he was even a little reluctant. The orcs all looked at Gu Xingyin eagerly. They all saw what Gu Xingyin did just now. Could she find out if the little orc could become a priest just like that? What was the result? Gu Xingyin didn't say anything. Instead, she ordered the orcs to bring the little orc to the side. She continued to check on the next little orc. She checked them one by one. When the last little orc was checked, 2 hours had passed. Wu Luo's face was already pale. Now it was even paler. Even his forehead was covered in fine beads of sweat. She needed to use her wizard power to examine the bodies of all the little beastmen. This was a task that consumed a lot of wizard power. Her prediction was not wrong. 10 was her limit. The orcs also saw that she was weak, and their expressions changed drastically as they asked her if she was all right. If the high priestess fell ill because of this, they would never forgive themselves. Gu Xingyin waved her hand, indicating that she was fine. She told them that she needed to rest well and that there was no need for lunch. After the food was served, she asked them to leave. She did not sleep. Instead, she sat cross-legged on the bed and began to cultivate slowly. She had already tried to cultivate her wizard power using the method of cultivating vital energy. If that was the case, meditating was a better method than sleeping. When she opened her eyes again, her complexion had returned to its usual pale white. After standing up from the bed, she no longer felt weak and powerless. She gently extended a finger and tapped it on the ground. An invisible force suddenly shot out, causing a crack to appear on the limestone floor. Gu Xingyin was very satisfied. She still looked weak on the outside, but her skills had undergone an earth-shattering change. She thought of the 10 little orcs that day. According to the way the orcs chose the high priestess, none of them were qualified. Those who were born with wizard power that was strong enough to be discovered by the priest, such as Wu Luo, would be geniuses who would be fought over by all the major sects in the world of sword cultivators. Such a person in the entire Owl Clan tribe was hard to come by even in a few decades. Chapter 7:11. However, if she were to select ordinary orcs who could cultivate sorcery, there would be 3 among the little orcs who could resonate with sorcery within their bodies. 3 out of 10 people were like that. This ratio was already terrifying. Being able to resonate with sorcery, even if it was weak, meant that they could cultivate along with it. As long as they could cultivate, their future combat power would not be something that the orcs who only relied on their strength and instincts could compare to. As for the little orcs who could not cultivate, Gu Shengyin could also teach them some simple ways to cultivate their bodies. Even if they could not be compared to the orcs who cultivated sorcery, they would still be much stronger than the orcs of today. Ever since Gu Shengyin knew that she had drawn the cultivation methods and techniques of the world of swordsmen, she had a wild ambition in her heart. She wanted to build a unique, powerful empire that would unify the orcs. At night, she once again appeared at the place where the orcs gathered. Since she wanted to play the role of a guide, she could not just stand on the high altar, but had to interact more with the orcs to make them more convinced. Gu Shengyin gave the chief, Taman, a few drawings. She used an extremely thin black pen to sketch a plant with large leaves. Although there was no color, it was very realistic. This is a gift from the beast god that can make the food more delicious, she explained. In fact, she could not stand the tastelessness of the food, so she directly asked the system for the plants that could be used as seasoning in this world. The chief, Taman, had always been very respectful to the high priestess. He immediately passed these few leaves to the male orcs who were going out to hunt tomorrow, and instructed them to remember to step on them when they saw them tomorrow. The next day, 10 little orcs were examined by Gu Shengyin using sorcery. This time, their luck was not as good as yesterday. Out of 10 little orcs, only one of them had a weak wave of sorcery. It seemed that the high ratio yesterday was just a coincidence. At night, the male beasts returned from their hunting trip and brought back many plants for Gu Shengyin. Gu Shengyin took a rough look and didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she discovered that there really were all kinds of plants inside. It seemed that those orcs couldn't really differentiate what kind of plant it was. As long as they saw something similar, they would grab it and bring it back. In fact, Gu Shengyin felt a little dizzy looking at these plants that looked almost the same. Fortunately, she had the system, so in less than an hour, she finished counting all these things. When she was cooking the meat soup at night, she gave a few of the plants to the female beasts and told them to grind them into juice and put it in the soup. In addition, when they were roasting meat, they should spread it evenly on the meat. The high priest's words were always right. The female beasts did as she said without any hesitation. After the roasted meat was cooked, they cut off the most tender part and placed it on a leaf, placing it in front of her on a tray. Gu Shengyin gently picked up a piece and put it into her mouth. What a nostalgic feeling! As the delicious food entered her mouth, she couldn't help but smile. Orvis, who had been secretly observing the high priest, blushed again. He couldn't help but think, how could the high priest smile so beautifully? Gu Shengyin glanced at Orvis from the corner of her eyes. This guy, he was always secretly watching me. Did he really think that I wouldn't notice? Chapter 712. There were not many little orcs in the owl tribe. There were thousands of orcs in the tribe, and there were less than 200 little orcs under the age of 10. Among these 200 little orcs, there were about 30 of them who could cultivate wizard power. Gu Shengyin also realized that orcs with weaker bodies, such as the deer tribe and the cat tribe, were more likely to have wizard power in their bodies than orcs with stronger bodies. For example, orcs like the tiger tribe and the lion tribe were naturally suited to be powerful warriors, but not suited to cultivate wizard power. After checking on the little orcs, Gu Shengyin announced her results on a day when the entire tribe was resting and praying. She read out the names one by one, and the orcs below started to get excited. When she finished reading out 30 names, the owl tribe was already boiling. They originally thought that having 5 or 6 little orcs who could cultivate wizard power in their tribe was already very powerful. This meant that the orcs might have 5 or 6 priests in the future. However, the high priest said that there were 30 of them. 30 priests, just thinking about it made the orcs' blood boil. Gu Shengyin looked at them and knew that even though he had said those words back then, they clearly hadn't understood what he meant. Although she said that the owl tribe would become the most powerful tribe, their thinking was still on the level of the tribe. Only when they were truly powerful could they have greater ambitions. She announced that for a long time in the future, these 30 little orcs would follow her and learn from her. As for the other orcs and little orcs, she did not give up. Instead, she gave the leader of the owl tribe a thick parchment. The parchment used simple orc language and lifelike pictures to tell the orcs what to do. According to the method on this parchment, you will most likely become warriors who are more powerful than priests. Gu Xingyin said loudly. To a large extent, these words were meant to encourage those warriors, because if they couldn't cultivate wizard power, it would be very difficult for them to achieve great things just by training their bodies. Unless that person had great perseverance, great wisdom, and great opportunities. Thinking of this, Gu Xingyin could not help but look at Orvis, who was among the male orcs. This was her lover, but she was not prepared to acknowledge him now. Without enough strength to crush the entire clan, if one wanted to be together with the most honorable high priest of the Owl clan, it was absolutely impossible to get recognition. The orcs of the surrounding tribes discovered that the Owl clan had recently become mysterious. Usually, they could always be seen during the day when they went out to hunt. Occasionally, the orcs would even fight over some prey. But now, the hunting time of the Owl tribe's orcs during the day seemed to have been greatly shortened. Even if both sides besieged a prey at the same time, the Owl tribe's orcs would give it to them when they were in a good mood. Many tribes felt that it was strange, and some even secretly wanted to find out what was going on. But how could the current Owl clan let them succeed? The high priest had said that everything that the beast deity had told her was highly confidential and could not be revealed to outsiders in the short term. Otherwise, she would suffer the most severe punishment. As the leader of a tribe, Tammin understood the importance of these things. He even made every beastman swear in front of the beast god that they would never spread this information. The male orcs of the Owl tribe really did not have time. During the day, they tried their best to hunt for the entire tribe's rations as fast as possible, went home early, and started practicing what the high priest had taught them. Time was the most precious thing. This was what the high priest had taught them. Chapter 7:13. What has the Owl tribe been doing recently? The chief of the Li tribe, Gully, frowned. He was a powerful black panther. When he turned into a human, his eyes were deep and sharp. At this moment, his upper body was naked, and under his strong muscles was vigorous power. The Li tribe and the Owl tribe were separated by a wide river. The two tribes were equal in strength, and they never gave up on each other. The Owl tribe's defense was very tight. The Li tribe's orcs couldn't enter the Owl tribe's territory. They could only roughly observe that the Owl tribe seemed to be very anxious recently. No matter when they saw the Owl tribe's male orcs, the other party was in a hurry. There's no big news coming out. It's definitely not a big deal. Why do you care about him? A charming voice came out. At the same time, a fluffy big tail wrapped around Gully's waist. Gully's eyebrows trembled, and his serious mouth hooked up into a smile. He took the little goblin into his arms. So flirtatious early in the morning. Didn't I satisfy you last night? As he said, his hand had already touched below. Vickers' gorgeous face flushed with his movements. The tail that was wrapped around Gully's waist began to rub his body more wantonly. Soon he had a reaction. You little goblin. The following words were somewhat unclear. Outside the Li tribe's chief's tent, only Vickers' coquettish gasps could be heard. The Owl tribe's orcs were very busy every day. The orcs didn't know what the little orc learned from the high priest every day. They also rarely asked the little orc. In their eyes, witchcraft had always been the most mysterious existence. They were not qualified to touch it. The male orcs who contacted according to the method on the parchment every day didn't feel any effect at first. Out of worship for the high priest, they persevered without hesitation. Until half a month later, they slowly found that the power in their bodies seemed to be stronger. In the past, in order to hunt for a whole day's rations for the whole tribe, the male orcs who were responsible for hunting had to go out for a whole day. These days, in order to find time to practice that set of moves, they began to finish their daily tasks as soon as possible and came back to practice as soon as possible. At first, they didn't notice the difference, but Gu Xingyin had been paying attention to the changes. At first, the orcs had to wait until it was almost dark before they could return. This was their normal strength. According to the time she was familiar with, it was about 5 in the afternoon. Gradually, when they returned, the the sun hanging in the sky was getting higher and higher. Half a month later, this time had already been pushed forward by more than an hour. Ta Meng was both surprised and happy. He couldn't wait to tell Gu Shengyin the news. Lord High Priest, the Owl Clan thanks you. Thank you for the beast god's gift. Originally, the status of the patriarch was equivalent to that of the high priest, but now, Ta Meng had automatically placed himself one level lower than the high priest. His way of thinking was the same as all the other orcs. It was very simple: the strong would be the king. And Gu Shengyin was not only strong, she had made the entire Owl clan stronger. Gu Shengyin's current reputation in the Owl tribe was far greater than his, the clan leader. Even Ta Meng did not doubt that if the high priest wanted to remove his position as the clan leader, the people of the Owl tribe would not object. Even he would reflect on himself at the first moment, whether he had done something wrong. This was the power of faith. Chapter 7:14. Gu Shengyin did not object to Ta Meng's way of doing things. If she wanted to become the leader of the Owl tribe, she would need to stand in a superior position. And no matter how one looked at it, it was completely natural for her to be able to enjoy such treatment. Gu Shengyin, who had such strong power, even if she left the Owl tribe, she would be able to build a strong tribe that was not inferior to the Owl tribe in a short period of time. Ta Meng came today for another matter. High Priestess, the Beast Tribe Alliance will be held in the Li tribe in half a month. Ta Meng came to inform her of this matter. As the High Priestess of the Owl tribe, Gu Shengyin had to attend this kind of event. I understand. Gu Shengyin nodded. She was about to meet that Wei Ka. Gu Shengyin was even a little curious about the beautiful foxes who were rumored to have subdued countless powerful orcs under their skirts. Half a month was enough for the orcs of the Owl tribe to realize the obvious changes in their strength. Their appearance did not seem to have changed much, but only they knew the changes inside. The orcs undoubtedly worshipped the High Priestess even more for imparting the magical thing called cultivation method to them and turning them into this kind of person. During the Beast Tribe Alliance, the High Priestess of the Owl tribe, Wu Luo, and the tribe leader, Ta Meng, selected 100 of the most elite orcs in the tribe and went to the Li tribe. This kind of alliance was not only a platform for the major tribes to communicate with each other, but also an opportunity for the major tribes to show their strength. After every alliance, the power and reputation of the major tribes would undergo a new reshuffle. Ta Meng's heart was full of ambition. He had the intention to let the Owl tribe show their strength in this alliance and show their strong strength to all their opponents. Gu Shengyin saw through his thoughts and did not feel that there was anything wrong. In this orc continent where the strong were respected, the only principle that everyone believed in besides the beast god was one: strength. Simply put, whoever had the biggest fist was the boss. What? You said to be reasonable? Sorry, I don't understand your logic in the Beastman world where even paper was not invented. This was also the reason why Gu Shengyin was so confident that the things in his hands were enough to establish a powerful empire in this world. As long as he became stronger, that would be the right thing to do. The representatives of the Owl tribe were respectfully welcomed into the venue, while the representatives of many small tribes needed to find a suitable position for themselves. It was best to be conspicuous, but not too good. Those good spots belonged to the large tribes. Even if they came early and occupied them, they wouldn't be able to keep them. No one felt that there was anything wrong with such a rule. You want a better position? Sure, it's fine. Defeat that Beastman tribe and this place will be yours. Gu Shengyin sat down at the seat that belonged to the Owl clan. Ta Meng took the initiative to leave the seat of honor for her, and sat at the back of the seat. As the elite of the young beastmen in the tribe, Ovi's was a strong beastman who was very likely to compete for the next chief position. His seat was not far away from Gu Shengyin. He couldn't help but look at the High Priestess, feeling happy and lonely. He was happy that he could keep looking at the High Priestess like this, and lonely because he didn't know when the High Priestess would notice him. He secretly made a decision in his heart. If he wanted to be seen by the High Priestess, then he would work hard to become stronger. He would become the most powerful beastman, so powerful that no one could ignore him, including her. Chapter 7:15. Tameng's actions attracted the attention of many tribes. However, most of them turned their heads away after a glance. The relationship between the tribe leader and the high priestess was usually very subtle. Some tribes' tribe leaders had more authority than the high priestess, while some tribes' high priestess had more faith than the tribe leader. This was a common occurrence. Tameng's actions only made them think that the high priestess had more faith in the owl tribe. However, most of the orcs turned their attention to Gu Shengyin. The young high priestess of the owl tribe was a female orc. She was a rare unicorn. Her transformation was perfect. When she was in her human form, the unicorn that was as beautiful as moonlight clearly showed her tribe. Legend had it that unicorns were the favorite children of the beast god. They had a beautiful appearance and unparalleled speed. They were the most beautiful scenery in the forest and grassland. Wu Luo was undoubtedly very beautiful. Her long silver hair reached her ankles. Her eyes and long hair of the same color complemented each other. Her skin was fairer than the average orcs. In addition, Wu Luo stayed in the house all year round without sunlight, so she looked even paler and more transparent. She wore a light, plain linen robe and sat there expressionlessly. She looked like a perfect and exquisite crystal statue. Many male beasts looked at Gu Shengyin with burning desire. Beastmen liked to conquer, especially male beasts. A female orc with such a noble status and such an outstanding appearance could easily attract the attention of all the male orcs. It could be said that in the owl tribe, as long as the high priestess said that she liked any male orc, all the male orcs would be extremely envious of that lucky guy. However, under such circumstances, the male orcs of the owl tribe were not very happy. What were those fellows from the other tribes looking at? Was our high priestess someone you could even dream of? Why don't you take a look at yourself? You look like a weakling. How dare you look at our high priestess? The male orcs of the owl tribe had already made a mental note of those orcs from other tribes who kept looking at Gu Shengyin's face. We'll treat you guys well during the friendly exchange later. The night was getting darker, and the bonfire was getting brighter. When the moon reached the center of the sky, the Beast Race Conference finally began. As the organizers, the patriarch and high priest of the Li clan finally arrived. The high priest of the Li clan was an old beast man with shriveled skin. He was already very old, but there was no young priest in the Li tribe who could carry the burden of the high priest. He could only drag his old body and persevere until there was a beast man in the tribe who could inherit his position. What caught everyone's attention was that there was a beautiful female beastman beside Gu Li, the patriarch of the Li clan. Her eyes were big and charming, and when she looked at others, there was always some affection in them. This female beast was wearing a small vest made of animal skin. Her white arms and legs were exposed. When she walked, her waist swayed gently, and the fluffy tail behind her swayed gently with her movements. She was truly a stunning beauty. Gu Shengyin sighed. Orcs were creatures with strong instincts. They were always straightforward about their desires. Gu Shengyin saw that many male beasts couldn't help swallowing their saliva as Vicar walked over. Chapter 7:16. Gu Li walked to the seat that belonged to him. Gu Shengyin saw that the most honorable seat of the Li clan was occupied by the clan leader, while the old high priest was supported by the other orcs to sit in the seat behind. Then, something that no one expected happened. That Fox clan female beast actually sat on Gu Li's thigh in front of everyone. The Owl clan was powerful, so the seat of the Owl clan was beside the organizer, the Li clan. As the number one person of the Owl clan's first seat, Gu Shengyin and Gu Li's seats were almost adjacent. Vicar's seat was equivalent to sitting on equal footing with the Owl clan's high priest. The orcs of the Owl clan's expressions turned ugly on the spot. The first seat represented the status of a tribe. The strength of the Li clan was equivalent to the Owl clan. They could tolerate the Li clan's clan leader and the high priest sitting in the same position. But what was that female beast? Why should she be on equal footing with the high priest? Not only the Owl clan, but many orcs from the other tribes also had ugly expressions. In their opinion, the Li clan's behavior was clearly a demonstration to the other tribes. They all looked in the direction of the Owl clan. As the only tribe on this great plain that could contend with the Li clan, the Owl clan was the only tribe present that was qualified to make trouble. The people of the Owl clan looked at Gu Shengyin. The fact that the high priest was sitting at the head of the table meant that the entire Owl clan was following her lead. In fact, many male beasts on the Owl clan's side could not hold it in anymore. The current Gu Shengyin was already infinitely deified in their hearts. No one could have the slightest bit of disrespect to the high priest. If Gu Shengyin admitted to this kind of thing, not only would the Owl clan lose face in front of the major tribes, but it would also cause her reputation to plummet among the Owl clan. Of course, she could not be afraid. So Gu Shengyin stood up. Her fair and delicate hand held a very smooth and exquisite cane. At the top of the cane, there was a ferocious-looking bird carved on it. This was the totem that the Owl tribe believed in, a ferocious bird called Ruthless Owl. Gu Shengyin turned her head and looked down at the Li clan leader who was sitting on his seat. What is the Li clan's intention? Gu Li's expression changed. He wasn't someone who didn't know the gravity of the situation. He also knew that doing such a thing in this kind of situation would easily offend people. But Vicar made him feel really comfortable on the bed. He didn't know why he couldn't stand her pestering and promised her when he was in a daze, which led to this scene just now. Since he had already offended the other party, he could not admit defeat at this time. Gu Li pretended to be indifferent. This is Vicar, my female beast. I love her very much. As the high priest of the Owl tribe, Wu Luo Pavilion won't be so stingy, right? After he finished speaking, he seemed to hear a cold laugh from the woman who was so beautiful that she didn't seem real. However, upon closer inspection, the woman's expression didn't seem to have changed at all. The next moment, Gu Shengyin's cane flashed with white light. The throne that Gu Li was sitting on, which was said to have taken a long time to make with the most gorgeous and sturdy metal, was instantly torn apart. Fortunately, he had good skills. At the crucial moment, he jumped with Vicar in his arms, and finally avoided the joke of falling on his back. But even so, Gu Li, who came back to his senses, still looked at Gu Shengyin in horror. Not only Gu Li, but all the orcs from the tribes present, even the orcs from the Owl tribe, also looked at Gu Shengyin in shock. Chapter 717. This seemingly weak high priestess of the Owl tribe actually had such tyrannical power? Although they knew that sorcerer power was a very magical power, was it really that powerful? The male beasts of the Owl tribe also looked at their high priestess with amazement and admiration. Although they knew that the high priestess who claimed to be blessed by the beast deity was definitely not that simple, they never thought that the high priestess would actually be so tyrannical. That was a throne made of gilt stone. Even the leader of the Owl tribe, Ta Meng, who claimed to be the most powerful person in the Owl tribe, admitted that he did not have the confidence to break it with one blow. But just now, no one even saw clearly how Wu Luo made his move. The one who was the most shocked was Gu Li. At this moment, his back was already drenched in cold sweat. Leopard Prince even appeared on his face uncontrollably. This was an uncontrollable physiological reaction of orcs when facing a strong enemy. Gu Li even thought that if the other party wanted to take his life just now, would he have already turned into a pile of fragments like the throne? He did not think that his body would be stronger than the gilt stone. Gu Shengyin stood there quietly after the blow just now. She still looked at Gu Li expressionlessly. If I were a little more stingy, the Li tribe would have to change its leader. Gu Li was actually rendered speechless by her words. The high priestess of the Owl clan was not wrong at all. If she really wanted to harm him, with her unimaginable methods, he really wouldn't be able to escape. He forced a laugh. I did not think it through. This was an apology for his behavior. Gu Shengyin then swept her gaze towards Vicar. Vicar felt that when she was swept by this gaze, it was as if she was instantly surrounded by an annoying winter. She even could not help but shiver. Her perennial smiling face stiffened for a moment. Then, she suddenly understood what Gu Shengyin meant. A wave of embarrassment surged from the bottom of her heart. But looking at Gu Li, who did not dare to say anything, she bit her lips and consciously walked out from his side. She bowed towards Gu Sheng. I am sorry, High Priestess, I broke the rules. Gu Shengyin waited until she finished bowing before finally retracting her gaze. She looked at Gu Li and said, "When a subordinate oversteps the rules, it is because the superior does not govern strictly. The Owl tribe disdains to participate in an alliance held by such a tribe." After she finished speaking, she turned and glanced in the direction of the Owl tribe. Ta Meng instantly understood what she meant. He stood up and shouted behind him, "Warriors, let's stand up and return to the tribe." All the orcs of the tribes watched the Owl tribe's members, under the lead of the high priestess of the tribe, left the land slowly. As for the Li clan beastmen, they were still in shock from Gu Shengyin's attack. Not a single beastman dared to stop them. They were openly shedding all pretense of cordiality. Originally, although the Owl tribe and the Li tribe did not get along well, they had never confronted each other on the surface. Looking at the Owl tribe and the orcs walking further and further away, some leaders of the small tribes made a decision in their hearts. "Chief Gu Li, there are still some things in my tribe that have not been dealt with. I will leave first. There are also some things in my tribe that have not been dealt with. I will leave first." In just a short moment, most of the tribes in the entire site had left. Most of the ones who stayed were those who had a good relationship with the Li tribe, or those who did not want to be involved in the conflict between the two tribes. Damn it! Gu Li looked at the scene that suddenly became deserted and finally could not help but roar angrily. Chapter 7:18. Vicar looked at them carefully, for fear that Gu Li would be angry with him. Although he was a very good lover, his temper was also very violent in daily life. Vicar's mind turned quickly, and he couldn't help but think of the high priest of the Owl tribe. Although the status of females was precious, it corresponded to their weakness. At the end of the day, females were like precious pets that were kept in captivity. Vicar seemed to have a noble status in the Li tribe and was sought after by everyone, but in fact, without the pursuit of those male beasts, he was nothing. But the high priest was different. Although she was a female, she had the noblest status in the whole tribe. This status was not given to her by her identity as a female, but by her own ability. The way the male beasts of the Owl tribe looked at her was completely different from the way the male beasts of the Li tribe looked at him. The male beasts of the Li tribe looked at him with only desire in their eyes, while the male beasts of the Owl tribe looked at their high priest with respect and admiration from the bottom of their hearts. Vicar clearly remembered the way the high priest looked at him, as if he was an insignificant dust, and there was no reflection in her eyes. He was simply so high and mighty that it was disgusting. Vicar lowered his eyes and hid all his ambitions deep in his eyes. On the side of the Owl tribe, all the male beasts looked at their high priest with excitement. In fact, they were very curious. How did the high priest do it just now? "High priest." Ta Meng couldn't help but speak. Gu Shengyin turned to look at him. Ta Meng hesitated and didn't know how to speak. "You want to ask me how I did it?" Gu Shengyin naturally continued his words. Ta Meng nodded and said with embarrassment, "High priest, if you find it troublesome, you don't have to. It's very simple," Gu Shengyin replied. She turned around and looked at more than 100 pairs of shining eyes. "Practice the skills I taught you well, and you can do it too." Ovis couldn't help but say, "Are you serious, High Priest? Then will I be as powerful as the High Priest one day?" For the first time, Gu Shengyin carefully looked at Orvis. After a long while, he clenched his fists nervously and said, "Nothing is impossible." Although his words were mostly encouraging, Orvis couldn't help but smile. He was from the Golden Lion race, the most powerful race among the beastmen. His innate strength was incomparably powerful, and his brilliant golden hair was as domineering as his master's personality. In front of Gu Shengyin, Orvis was just a shy orc who had yet to reach adulthood. However, his companions only knew about him when they were hunting. Then, Gu Shengyin's next words made him overjoyed. "I need a guard. Orvis, are you willing?" Orvis's first reaction was, "The High Priestess actually remembers me?" His second reaction was, "What did the High Priestess just say?" He looked around blankly and realized that his companions were looking at him with envy and jealousy. Then, he confirmed that the high priestess just asked him if he was willing to be her guard. "I'm willing." Chapter 719. Orvis had never been so grateful to the beast god before. He felt that it must be the beast god's protection that allowed him to gain the high priestess' favor. Ta Meng patted his shoulder happily and jealously. "You little brat, protect the high priestess well in the future." Although, he did not think that the high priestess would need someone else's protection with her power. Ta Meng suddenly thought of something. His heart could not help but race as he looked at Gu Shengyin with a burning gaze. "High priestess, the 30 children of the owl tribe." His voice was slightly agitated. Gu Shengyin immediately understood what he meant. She nodded without hesitation. "They will definitely be able to do what they did today." Only to do what they did? The power that the high priestess spoke of was like music to the ears of Ta Meng and the rest. Before Wu Luo, Ta Meng had never seen such a powerful high priestess. But today Wu Luo said that the 30 children that she taught personally would be so powerful in the future. For the first time, Ta Meng had an ambition in his heart. According to this development, the future of the owl tribe would be limitless. Wu Luo must be the messenger sent by the beast god to bring prosperity to the owl tribe. After returning to the owl tribe, Gu Shengyin continued to focus on teaching the 30 little orcs. In the future, these 30 orcs would be her representatives. They would replace her to find suitable people in the owl tribe who were suitable to cultivate sorcery power and pass down the cultivation method. Other than that, she still had 2 things to do. The first thing was Orvis. "Do you want to become stronger?" She looked at the orc in front of her who had yet to grow up. Orvis was now between a teenager and an adult. His features were handsome and there was a hint of youthful handsomeness. Orvis answered without hesitation. "How strong do you want to be?" Gu Shengyin asked. She wanted to know how ambitious this male orc was. Orvis hesitated and looked at Gu Shengyin. "It's okay. I want to hear the truth." Gu Shengyin encouraged him. Orvis looked at Gu Shengyin seriously and said in a firm voice, "I want to be stronger than you, High Priestess. I want to be the most powerful orc in the orc continent." "Alright." Gu Shengyin couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Her eyes couldn't help but reveal a trace of a smile. He really didn't disappoint her. Orvis, on the other hand, was stunned by this rare beauty. When Lord Wu Luo laughed, it was as if a ray of sunlight had suddenly shone on a mountain peak covered in snow all year round. It easily caught everyone's attention. Fortunately, he was the only one here. Orvis thought to himself. He was the only one who could see such a beautiful scene. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel a sweetness in his heart. "What are you thinking about?" Orvis snapped out of his daze and saw that the person in front of him had already retracted his smile and returned to his cold self. Orvis lied without changing his expression. "I'm thinking about how to become stronger." "Nonsense. Do you think I didn't see your idiotic smile?" Gu Shengyin complained in her heart. However, she calmly took out a roll of parchment. "This is an extremely precious item. Look at it carefully and remember it. Remember, don't show it to anyone. After you're done, burn it." Chapter 720. Orvis took the item nervously. If Wu Luo was so careful with it, it must be very precious. He couldn't help but ask, "Is it just for me?" He didn't know why, but when he thought of this possibility, he couldn't help but feel happy. Gu Shengyin nodded. "You're the only beastman in the entire beastman continent who's learning it." This was an extremely powerful and cruel body tempering technique. Gu Shengyin knew about it when she was in the sword cultivator continent. A peerless genius who was born without a sword heart relied on this body tempering technique to become an honorable martial artist. After him, there were countless people who didn't have the aptitude for sword cultivation who wanted to use this technique to reach the heavens in a single bound. However, none of them persisted. Most of them died under the harsh and cruel training. It was so difficult that if one wasn't careful, they could really lose their lives. Gu Shengyin asked Orvis seriously, "This technique can only make you the strongest person in the Beastman continent. It can't be guaranteed." Moreover, it's very dangerous. You may lose your life because of it. She added, I have some other techniques here. Although they can't be compared to this, they can guarantee that you can safely become a strong person. You don't have to take this risk. No need, Orvis answered firmly, I'm willing to try this. If I can't become the most dazzling one, how can you really set your sights on me? Gu Xingyin's eyes revealed a slight smile. All right then. I hope that I can see the day when you're strong enough to conquer the entire Beastman continent. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me anytime. Orvis left. Gu Xingyin stretched out her hand and rubbed her forehead. She was taking a risk by giving this to Orvis. To be honest, this technique definitely couldn't appear in the Beastman continent. However, Orvis was her lover. Although Gu Xingyin couldn't confirm his true identity, she could faintly sense that his identity wasn't simple. Therefore, she tried to take a gamble. She gambled that the world's laws would not be able to detect it, or rather, they would not be able to control him. He didn't expect that when he gave the cultivation technique to Orvis, it really didn't cause any ripples in the laws of the world. However, he was probably the only one. This was also the reason why Gu Xingyin sternly warned Orvis to burn it down after memorizing it. The other reason was the danger of cultivating this technique. Gu Xingyin was not very worried about this. Based on her understanding of her lover, his status in every world and his luck was as good as hers, the main characters. Such a person would not meet with an accident so easily. After settling the matter with Orvis, Gu Xingyin started working on the second matter. She sat cross-legged on the bed and closed her eyes. She did not move, but her powerful divine sense spread out. She saw Orvis opening the sheepskin scroll in her room and reading it carefully. She saw that most of the male beasts were practicing the body tempering technique that she taught them. She saw that the female beasts were cleaning up today's prey. She even saw a pair of beastmen. Gu Xingyin's divine sense paused for a moment. Then it sped up and spread out. It crossed the wide river and reached the distant Li tribe. She came to the place where Vicar was. Chapter 721. Vicar was sitting alone in the room in a daze. Vicar. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded in her mind. Who is it? Vicar's face changed and he looked around. Don't look for me. You can't see me. Gu Xingyin said in Vicar's mind. Vicar's face was a little panicked, but he still tried to keep calm. Who are you? Why are you looking for me? What was she afraid of? She had never encountered such a thing. The voice did not answer her question but asked, Do you want to be strong? Vicar was moved, but he did not speak. Do you want to be worshipped by all the orcs and let them recognize your status instead of being obsessed with your body? Although the voice was very cold, Vicar felt that there was a kind of magic in her words. Moreover, every word was right in his heart. How could he not want to? But Vicar knew that there was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. She wandered among countless male beasts in the Li tribe and easily won their hearts. She relied not only on the beauty of her body. What can you bring me? What price do I have to pay? Vicar asked cautiously. Gu Xingyin praised her in her heart. She was indeed a fox girl. She was so delicate that she caught the key point at once. Like the beast god, swear allegiance to me, she said. I can tell you how to be strong, and let the whole Li tribe belong to you. Let the whole Li tribe belong to you. This sentence was like thunder in Vicar's mind. She unconsciously thought of the high priest of the Owl clan that day. She was so high and mighty. Her appearance was so beautiful, but in the entire Owl clan, not a single male beast dared to look at her disrespectfully. This was the benefit of strength and power. I need to think about it, Vicar said with difficulty. Well, I'll give you 3 days. After 3 days, I'll come and ask for your answer. The room was quiet again. Vicar did not know if the mysterious person had really left. She tried to call out, but there was no response. After thinking for a while, she laughed self-deprecatingly. With the other party's miraculous means, if he really wanted to deal with her, it would be a simple matter. He wouldn't even need to spend much effort. Gu Xingyin retracted her spiritual consciousness and opened her eyes. She knew that Vicar would not refuse her. On that day, She clearly saw the unwillingness and ambition in Vikar's eyes. A female beast with such a gaze would definitely not be willing to become the exclusive offspring of a male beast. With her looks, the only way out for her was to become stronger. He had become even stronger than those male beasts who coveted her. As early as the moment she saw Vikar, Gu Xingyin made this decision. A woman like Vikar, if used well, would be a sharp blade. Having such a subordinate was much better than having such an enemy, wasn't it? 3 days later, Gu Xingyin got a positive answer from Vikar. Beast God above, I, Vikar, hereby swear that I will be loyal to Master Wu Luo for the rest of my life. Vikar made an oath according to the words Gu Xingyin gave her. When she knew that this person was Wu Luo, she was surprised. But after the surprise, she felt relieved. A female beast like her, what could she not do? Chapter 722. After Vikar made the vow, he felt as if something had come to him in the dark. She was a little scared. Was the beast god watching her? She had some thoughts in her heart, but now she hid them deep in her heart. Close your eyes, Gu Xingyin said lightly. Vikar closed her eyes, and soon, something went into her mind like a tide. Every 10 days I will come here. If you don't understand anything, you can come to me. Gu Xingyin said, I will give you this and the rest is up to you. I hope that after a year, you can completely control the Li clan in your own hands. After she finished, she withdrew her divine sense from Vikar's mind, leaving Vikar alone in a daze. She passed on to Vikar a secret cultivation method of the Fox clan. Although it was called a secret cultivation method, it was not a profound cultivation method, but something more like a charm. This kind of cultivation method was the best for Vikar, a female beast of the Fox clan. She was originally gifted, and now with this, Gu Xingyin had no doubt that she could make all the male beasts who had touched her to be loyal to her. 1 year, Gu Xingyin thought carefully. By then, the overall strength of the Owl clan should have a qualitative improvement. The little orcs who had been taught by her for almost 2 years had been able to use wizard power skillfully, and with the help of the Li clan. It was almost time. Teacher. A crisp voice sounded outside the door. Gu Xingyin smiled when he heard that. This was one of the first batch of little orcs who had wizard power detected by her. She let these 30 little orcs call her teacher. And this little orc was the only little unicorn among them. Moreover, she had no parents. The number of unicorns was extremely rare. At that time, the male beasts of the Owl clan also rescued this precious little female beast from the mouth of a beast when they were hunting, and raised her in the clan until now. This little unicorn named Alice was Gu Xingyin's loyal fan, and also the one with the strongest wizard power among all the little orcs. Come in, Gu Xingyin said. The little girl skipped into the room. She was only 10 years old this year. She had long silver-white hair like Gu Xingyin's, reaching her waist. The only difference between her and Gu Xingyin was that her transformation had not fully matured yet. There was a delicate white horn on her small head, which made her look very cute. Teacher. She carefully stretched out her hand that was hidden behind her back. In her hand, she was holding a bouquet of beautiful flowers. There were even a few drops of morning dew on the petals. It was obvious that they had just been plucked. It was obvious that the little girl had spent a long time looking for these flowers. Every single one of them had bloomed at their most beautiful time. Gu Xingyin could not resist such an obedient and cute little girl. She solemnly accepted little Alice's gift and said seriously, "Thank you, Alice. Teacher likes you very much." When Orvis entered the room, he saw a scene that made his heart tremble. Gu Xingyin half-squatted down and allowed the little unicorn girl with the same silver-white hair to place a delicate and beautiful flower in her hair. He realized that Master Wu Luo would always be extra gentle towards little children. Master Wu Luo really liked little children. He wondered if she had her own little orc. He thought about how there would be a little soft orc like Master Wu Luo in the future. Orvis felt that not only his heart, but even the tips of his ears were burning. Chapter 723. A lot of things could happen in a year's time. For example, the 30 little orcs who learned from Gu Shengyin were able to successfully use the wizard power in their bodies and use some small spells. Systematic learning and self-exploration were two completely different levels. The little orcs now, in terms of the accumulation of wizard power, were not weaker than the priests in the ordinary tribes. One had to know that the oldest among them was only 11 years old. The male orcs of the owl tribe had also greatly improved their overall strength. The longer the time, the more they could feel the changes in their bodies and strength. Now, it only took them one day to hunt for a day's worth of food for the whole tribe. The orcs who had tasted the benefits of strength would spend more time on practicing their skills. This was a virtuous cycle. Gu Shengyin also taught the female orcs in the tribe to distinguish some wild plants that could be eaten and some things that could be used as seasoning that had never been discovered before. She also taught them that there were more ways to cook food than boiling and roasting. The life of the owl tribe had unknowingly far exceeded the average level of this world. There was also Vicar of the Li tribe. The name of the fox girl could be said to be famous in the nearby tribes recently. The old high priest of the Li tribe could not hold on after all and left this world for the embrace of the beast god. The remaining priests of the Li tribe competed with each other to become the new high priest. However, what everyone did not expect was that Vicar suddenly rose at this time. With the support of many supporters, she suppressed all the voices of opposition with thunderous means and became the new high priest of the Li tribe. Vicar didn't show any mercy to the Li clan's people who opposed this matter. He sent them all to see the former high priest. Undoubtedly, compared to the opponents, she had more supporters. Even Gu Shengyin had to admire the ability of the fox girl. What she taught her was only a set of skills. Vicar could achieve this step mostly by her own strength. She did not know how she did it. The overbearing Black Panther tribe leader of the Li tribe actually followed her lead. In the Li tribe, the authority of the high priest now surpassed that of the tribe leader. In this case, of course, Vicar quickened the pace of consolidating his strength. The entire Li clan was basically under his control. Of course, what surprised Gu Shengyin the most was Orvis. It had only been a year. Although she already knew that Orvis was definitely a genius with extraordinary talent, the speed of his improvement still surprised her. He had survived the most difficult time. In the beginning, Gu Shengyin had seen him a few times. He was so thin that he was just a pair of bones. Even his cheeks were deeply sunken. Even Tamin asked Gu Shengyin anxiously what had happened to Orvis. Why did he become like this? After all, ever since he became Gu Shengyin's personal bodyguard, Orvis no longer had to hunt with the orcs in the tribe every day. His mission was to follow Gu Shengyin closely. Fortunately, after half a year of adaptation, Orvis finally returned to normal. However, Gu Shengyin slowly realized that she could not understand this lion that was getting stronger and stronger. Chapter 724. In a year's time, Orvis had officially entered the stage of adulthood. His body grew taller rapidly and his originally thin body started to become stronger. His face also became more handsome and deep. His bright golden hair shone brightly under the sun. The charm of the golden lion started to show from his body. Gu Shengyin had seen more than once that there were female beasts in the owl tribe who were hinting at him. However, Orvis was no longer the young and inexperienced lion cub. He could make people dizzy with a charming smile and then say cruel words of rejection without giving people any hope. When the female beasts in the owl tribe talked about Orvis, their faces were filled with pity and shock. They wondered what kind of female beasts could win his heart. No one would link it to the high priest. This was because Gu Shengyin was no longer just the messenger of the beast deity in the hearts of the owl tribe members. Many beasts even felt that Master Wu Luo must be the incarnation of the beast deity. Otherwise, how could she know so many things and bring the owl tribe to such a prosperous state? If Master Wu Luo was compared to ordinary female beasts, it would be a blasphemy to her. Master Wu Luo, Orvis's deep voice rang out. Gu Shengyin let him in. When the tall and handsome man walked in, Gu Shengyin only felt that the entire room seemed to light up in an instant. This man was always unscrupulously releasing his masculine charm. When he looked at people with his dark golden eyes, It seemed that there was always a sharp sense of aggression. If it were anyone else, it would only make people feel disgusted when they looked at someone like that. However, Orvis seemed to be born with such an aura. Under his gaze, people would only feel oppressed and nervous as if space was being occupied. However, it was obvious that Gu Shengyin did not belong to this group of people. "What's the matter?" she asked. Orvis nodded and stared at her with his deep eyes. "I want to challenge Master Ta Meng tonight." In his eyes, there was a burning fighting spirit and passion, an ambition that could not be extinguished. Did Gu Shengyin not mean anything? In fact, she already found it unbelievable that Orvis could endure until now. Defeating Ta Meng is not difficult for the people of today. When Ao Weiss heard this, he smiled gently. He looked at Gu Shengyin with a strange gaze and said, "Lord Wu Luo, if I defeat Lord Ta Meng tonight and become the #1 warrior of the Owl tribe, can you promise me a request?" Gu Shengyin glanced at him and said calmly, "You have the nerve to ask for a mission that is not challenging at all?" His uncourteous tone made Orvis laugh out loud. Lord Wu Luo was perfect and impeccable in front of everyone. He was cold and courteous to everyone, but now he was starting to blame himself. What did this mean? In her heart, he was different from others, right? Orvis felt as if there was a pool of clear water in the bottom of his heart, and Lord Wu Luo's words were like a stone thrown into that pool of clear water, causing endless waves to surge out. He could not help but cover his chest with his hand. It was already getting harder and harder to control the impulse in his heart. Chapter 725. At night, more than half of the orcs from the Owl tribe gathered together to watch the battle between the warriors. Tribal leader Tamin had always been the #1 warrior in the tribe, but everyone had seen Ovis's improvement over the past year. Moreover, he was following Master Wu Luo. Just this point alone was enough to make all the orcs not dare to underestimate him. Everyone knew that Master Wu Luo's methods were not something that ordinary orcs could think of. If Ovis was taught by her and became very powerful, they would understand. Gu Shengyin was invited to sit on the highest platform in the center and watch the battle from above. She did not need to watch to know the result. No one knew Ovis's true abilities better than she did. He had already surpassed the limits of a normal orc's abilities. At first, the two of them were still testing each other in their human forms. Not long after, the orcs' aggressive nature was stimulated and they all revealed their beast forms. Tamin's beast form was a titan, a powerful beast that was one of the kings of the forest. His beast form was very tall and had a dark body. The most eye-catching part was his long and powerful arms with sharp claws hidden under his palms. No one dared to underestimate the abilities of an adult titan. However, everyone's attention was attracted by the giant beast on the other side. Even Gu Shengyin, although she had seen Ovis's beast form before, was still shocked every time she saw it. The lion that stood quietly had golden fur without any impurities. Under the contrast of the bonfire, it looked as if its entire body was bathed in light. Its body was strong and graceful, and its dark golden eyes looked coldly at the opponent in front of it. It was like a mythical beast that symbolized benevolence and power in the tribe's myths and legends. Many female orcs looked at Ovis with infatuation and resentment. Many of them had expressed their feelings for Ovis before, but they were all coldly rejected without exception. Ovis felt a gaze on him. He knew who it was the only person he cared about. His body tensed up unconsciously. Orvis swore to himself that he had to win this battle beautifully. Roar! The two giant beasts roared and tangled together. The orcs who were watching all shouted excitedly. To them, being able to watch such a powerful battle was a very glorious thing. "I lost," the Black Titan said in a deep voice. The huge golden lion was pressing down on him, its sharp fangs pressing against his neck. Tamin had no doubt that if they were in the forest and he was facing an enemy, then this Fong would have already bitten his throat. Orvis let go of the chief and retreated to the side. His body gradually transformed back into human form. The first thing he did was look at Gu Shengyin, who was on the high platform. When he saw the look of admiration in the high priest's eyes, his ears twitched involuntarily. This was a reaction of extreme excitement in his heart. Tamin also returned to his human form. Although he was in Orvis's hands, he looked very happy. "Good lad, you're amazing." He laughed heartily and patted Orvis's shoulder. The more powerful the young beastmen were, the better it was for the owl tribe. Tameng didn't feel that losing was shameful. If they really wanted to compete for strength, there was still a powerful high priest in the family that people looked up to. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.